I told you when I started that I had never really thought I would do homeschooling, so I sort of stumbled into the kindergarten curriculum that we used, and it turned out to be a really neat one. It's called 5 in a Row, and I recommend it for anybody who has a kindergartner. It's a very gentle learning system that you read a classic children's book once a day for a week, and then learning experiences are drawn from that book. So it was just fantastic. So when we were in kindergarten, or when we started kindergarten with my oldest, we did 5 in a Row, and then we did symphonics, which I used sing, spell, read, and write. And then we did math, which was, we used Math UC. And turned out my oldest was really math phobic. So Math UC is really good for people who don't like math or don't really get it. So that's why we stuck with that for her. Once we got to the elementary ages for my oldest, when she went to first grade, I started with traditional textbooks because I didn't really know what else to do. So I started with Bob Jones University Press, which has textbooks for every subject at that first grade level. And that worked all right for the first year. But then when she was in second grade, my next child was in kindergarten. And I realized that by the time I ended up having all these kids in textbooks, I would have absolutely no time left for myself. So that's when I looked into KONOS, which is a multi-age unit study type learning curriculum. It's called KONOS.
Can you spell that for us?
Yep, KONOS. And it can be very intimidating because it's a big, thick book. But if you read through the directions in the front, you'll learn how to use it. And we used it for 3 years and just had a ball. It's unit study, so you do more activities around a certain subject. So, for example, one of our units was studying Native Americans. So we read books from the library about Native Americans. We made maps of where the different tribes lived and how they moved across the country. We made outfits for the kids. They wanted to make their own Indian wear. Just things like that, which they still remember to this day. Oh, we made a teepee in the living room, and they slept in the teepee in the living room for a couple nights. So things that they still remember. And it was just a great way for elementary age kids to learn things and retain it. And it was just very interesting for them and really very interesting for me as a teacher. Once we got to high school, I went to another modified unit study, I would say, called My Father's World. And that is, they have all levels. They have younger kids, they have elementary, and they have high school. And I think it's a good curriculum. I used the younger kid, the 2 to 8 year old curriculum for my two younger kids that came after the first 3. I just really like that. That's the one that came with the schedule in the front, so that it takes less planning, because by that time I had 2 young kids, one of which was a baby, and I just didn't have time to plan anymore. So we did that, and it worked out really well. We also added into that science. My Father's World does English, history, and Bible, or language arts, history and Bible. So we added science in the high school to that. We added foreign language, whatever else there is, government, all of that. Oh, yeah, and some of that was at the co-op in the local high school. We also added math. And like Karen said, you can really tailor this. If you're homeschooling, you do not need to follow the book exactly right the way it says, because if my oldest daughter also was not very happy with math in any way. And so knowing that she would never be an engineer, we just went to consumer math and stopped. The next 2 children love math, and they went on and on. And now my youngest 2, one of them hates math, and one of them gets along just fine with it. So you can, you see where your kids are going, and you know that they are going to need certain things, but maybe not others. So you have a lot of flexibility there. And that's one of the things that makes it a joy. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. No, you're fine. I just wanted to ask, can you briefly mention just kind of a really broad, typical cost for your year maybe? Or
Well, I just went and looked up the kindergarten stuff I used, and wow, has it gone up in price. I'm sorry to say. So when I bought my kindergarten stuff, it cost me about $150. Now it's up to about $300 for my 5 in a Row, Sing, Spell, Read, and Write, and Math UC. So I would say that I would spend $300 to $400 per year, but I used that for multiple kids. So I didn't have to spend $300 to $400 per kid per year. I spent that, I would say, in total. Sometimes more, sometimes less.
Thank you.
Another thing I'll just tag off of that is that if you keep your curriculum in decent condition, you can also usually resell it. So think about that. That's another option for you. All right, I'll try to go quickly here. For us, I've been a very eclectic homeschooler in the sense that I don't seem to like to do anything twice for a very long time. And so we have tried a large variety of curriculums. We have never bought an entire box set for the year because that would just be way too restraining for me. And so we have found some things that have really resonated. I would double down for kindergarten and learning to read. The Read, Write, Sing, Spell was an excellent curriculum. We used that for all of our kids, and I was just amazed at how they ended up learning to read, despite having me as their teacher. So that was, and that is a little bit of a cost investment. As she said, it was about $300. We did, other than that, though, I will tell you, we found almost everything free online. There are so many online math programs that you can use, online grammar programs that you can use, and for a pretty low investment, I think it's maybe like $10 a month, I swear by education.com for elementary school, you can set up a profile for multiple children, and then it gives you kind of this game course that they work their way through, especially if you think you're doing this for a year. That's a great, easy thing that you can do that will hopefully give you some reassurance that they're moving forward. Story of the World is a fantastic history curriculum that I actually learned of through Karen. She was my mentor mom when I started, what am I doing? And the thing that's brilliant about Story of the World is that it can actually be used for any grade level K through 12. You can make it more intense and in-depth for older students and lighter for younger. And if you're looking to consolidate, man, that covers your history, your geography, a lot of your literature, and it's amazing how much you're knocking off your list just by going through that program. And that, I just looked at it today, depending on the year that you choose, a one-year bundle is somewhere between $40 to $70. And you can photocopy what you get for multiple children. So that's a piece there. As we've gotten older, we've moved into more textbooks. I don't want to talk too long, but I will say for those who are not really loving math, we stumbled across a really great curriculum for my oldest, who loved math and was quite good at it, and then started saying, when am I ever going to use this? And he was hitting about in 7th, 8th grade math level. And so we tested this last year, a curriculum that is called Life of Fred. It was written by a college professor who was also a math teacher in high school, and every pre-algebra book that he did last year was pre-algebra with economics, pre-algebra with biology, and pre-algebra with something else I'm not remembering right now. But it was very practical, it is funny, it's very different than a traditional math textbook, and it's designed that your child is supposed to be able to teach themselves. He certainly has had questions and needed help from me at times, but it's been a game changer for us in terms of the why do I have to learn this. The last thing I will mention about the curriculum piece specifically is that we usually spent somewhere between, in the first years, maybe $300 on the reading curriculum, and that was it. Now, we're doing textbooks sometimes, and co-ops, we can get close to like $800 for the year, but that's for 3 children, and so that's been fairly manageable for us. And the last thing I would say is kind of on Karen's point about finding a mentor mom. Find a mentor mom and then tell them what your schedule is like, what your kids are like, because sometimes you take those assessments and you think this is what I should do, and if you spend maybe 10 minutes talking with an experienced homeschool mom, they may be able to help you say, this is probably going to be a better fit for you, because we've just been exposed to more people doing lots of different things. So my last bit on that.
Okay, and I would say, as Karen gave somebody once told me that has stuck with me, is the best curriculum is just the one you use. So don't spend too much time, like if all the lists are getting to be really overwhelming, again, just ask, I literally just asked everybody I knew what they used, and the thing I heard the most, I said, okay, I'll go buy that. And also, again, I found at a garage sale this cute little kindergarten Albeca book, and my kids thought it was colorful, fun, they were begging to do it, doing like 10 pages at a time, and I'm over here like, hee, they don't know they're learning. And so when they finished that, like a month later, I ordered the first grade book, and then when they finished that, like 6 months later, I ordered the second grade book. So unlike Leanne in her free time enjoying looking through the school standards, I have never once looked at those. Don't tell anybody, but again, it's that freedom where I chose Abeka and we've continued with Abeka really just because I don't want to have to know in particular that it's an organization, a school that's been around for like 60 years. Their materials have been used in public schools all around the world. And so again, the question of like, I don't know if I'm teaching my kids enough, I say, I chose like produced material and that I trust. And so just like when you send your kids to school and you assume your second grade teacher is giving them things that a second grader should learn, I just assume, well, they've learned everything in their third grade books and done. All that to say though, I have never once done like I have a third grader, send me the whole box of third grade materials, which would be about $500. I've just gone and looked at other people's books. I've never once bought like the teacher's manual until 6th grade math, darn you. Too hard for me. I just buy the workbook, which is like $22, $24 for the language and then for the arithmetic. And then we supplement. If something was too easy or too hard, we practice learning it in different ways. Sure, random question from the audience. Yeah. Abeka is the company. ABEKA. So it's a Christian school down in Florida, and it's been around for a long time. So that is who we mainly use for our math and arithmetic. Again, I've gone to fairs where you can see the curriculum, and I didn't really like the idea of buying a science textbook to read when we can go to the library and read things about science that would be in the textbook. The history book, again, it was like talking about our presidents. I didn't need to buy their president's book when I could, do groups with other people. I second the story of the world. When my kids were really young, I highly recommend the website Confessions of a Homeschooler. I really like their free planner that you can download. Again, I have never kept daily, by any means, or weekly records. I make out a chart at the beginning of the year, and I have 6 kids. Give me a break. I make out a schedule at the beginning of the year. Here's all the curriculum they're going to do this whole year. Here's what they're going to do every day. Here's how many pages of everything they have to do a day to get done by the end of the year. And I'm just kind of assuming that unless, something like a pandemic happens, who knew, that they would follow that schedule and kind of be finished with what we had planned for the whole year. So just the range. But Confessions of a Homeschooler also has a free printable letter of the week curriculum that's appropriate for kind of preschool age kids. And again, I had never known how to teach a child to read, and the book that many, many people told me to buy off of Amazon for, again, maybe $20 is Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And again, it's kind of use the curriculum. There's a writing portion of it. There's like a comprehension retelling. I just totally skipped that because the kids and I were done after the first say this after me, R. Okay, we did it for literally 10 minutes, and then we were done. And so far, 5 have learned to read that way. So I'm going to keep going with that. And it was like a one-time investment, again, that you could sell. And then I'll just kind of say, too, that it's really important to me to teach my kids to use technology to their favor. I would get 1,000 questions a day if we didn't have an Alexa. So get an Alexa or Google Home, whatever. I mean, be brand specific, but she knows all vocabulary words. She knows how to spell. She even speaks Spanish. Really, rather than your kids saying, what should I wear today? Ask Alexa what the weather's going to be. What's a cup? How many cups are in a pint again? I don't know. Go ask Alexa. So some things. She does math. Yes, math conversions, all those types of things. So we watch YouTube videos often, just impromptu. The kids read a reading comprehension thing about a bullet train 2 days ago for some friend's study. They're like, did you know Japan has this bullet train? I'm like, let's watch a YouTube video over dinner about it. Boom. There was some awesome learning there, totally child-led and free, and I think all of that counts. And it just fosters the spirit of fun, of learning.
Courtney is the queen of making learning fun. I envy that, because I'm not the fun mom, but she can attest. Okay, so we're gonna kind of shift to, we've heard about co-ops. We're gonna come back a little bit to more of the what do you do with your day sort of things, social activities, but I want Ben to tell us a little bit about co-ops and groups, and especially in our COVID days, certain groups are popping. It's just organically parents are forming groups, and so tell us a little bit about all of that, legal ramifications.
Here's where I get to make the disclaimer: I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not liable for any advice of mine that you may or may not follow. No. If you've been reading the national media at all, or watching CNN, or reading Washington Post, or you just get Google alerts, there are groups of parents like you, and tend to be more affluent areas around the country, but you're seeing it in Northern California and the DC area and Upper Midwest and Austin, Texas. I've been reading stories every day, and nobody knows quite what to call these. Are they pandemic pods? That sounds a little like a science fiction movie, maybe not. I don't like that one. Homeschool pods, a little closer to probably what it is. Microschooling is pretty cool. The one-room schoolhouse, kind of harkening back to some practices in the past. But the basic idea is parents are saying, okay, I don't like the options we have under this certain circumstance, so we're going to pull our resources together, kind of like a co-op, but a little bit more formal. So we'll talk a little more about co-ops, all right? Okay. So if you're on the spectrum, the micro school is a little bit more structured than a co-op. Usually what's happening is 6 or 8 parents or families are hiring a teacher, and they're pooling their funds to pay for the teacher. There's one particular micro school I know that's new, and I only say them by name because there's not a lot of branding to it right now. It's called Prenda, Prenda, and they started out of Arizona 2 years ago. A guy who was I think he was a physicist or something, and his kids were getting bored at school, and so he organized this program in his neighborhood and worked together with parents, and now they've got a program that's serving thousands of kids all over Arizona. Arizona has something called education savings accounts, which allows them to fund their private education through state dollars. Michigan, unfortunately, does not have that, but Prenda is marketing kind of a tailored, slightly more structured program to people if they're willing to pay a little bit of tuition. So that's another option out there. Is it legal? Yes, as far as we know. Because nobody in Michigan has tried to sue to stop it yet. And so if you're the bold, adventurous kind of parent and want to ask forgiveness rather than permission, you have my full support. I'm not going to say anything to anybody. I think that's kind of where we're at with microschooling. That's an option for parents who are probably thinking, I don't have as much time to invest in this planning, day-to-day planning and organizing structure. But if we pull together and find a trained teacher who can help, and we can all pay for it somehow, that might work better for us. So that's one option that's kind of out there.
All right, so more traditional, what have been around for a while, are co-ops. Briefly, I know Karen and Ann have both been involved in starting things. Karen, why don't you talk about your experiences with forming groups of people, whether it's sort of robots or speak to what
so
your
when
experience is like.
my kids were young, we wanted to have some experiences with other children. And it's very hard to teach gym classes and even teach them how to play tag and things like that if you only have a couple of kids. So we got together, there was a group of moms that were all kind of had the same age range of kids, and we got together once a week, and we decided that half the time was going to be gym time because we needed these kids to get some energy out. And the other half was going to be something that needed more people. So like one semester, we had a speech class. These were very young kids, so they spoke for 2 minutes on a book they liked. But it was just having them have the experience of speaking in front of other people besides just, I'm speaking in front of mom. We did art class like that. We did book discussion groups like that. So we've done a variety. You usually just have to try to find moms with kids about the same age that are wanting to study about the same thing. And we did that all through elementary. And then when our kids were in high school, a local professor took on our group, and he ended up doing the classics and had the kids read the classics and then write essays on it. So that was a great help. And then as far as the rogue robots, I was part of a group of parents that wanted to start a robotics team and wanted it for our homeschool kids. And we just got together and formed it and didn't quite know what we were doing the first year, but then the next year we actually had learned some. And anyway, we've had a team now for 7 years. This is our 7th year. So if any of you are have high school students and want to join our team this year, hopefully we'll get to compete, but we'll see what happens with the COVID. So.
Leanne, tell us what you've done.
Yeah, I mentioned that we started a co-op as well about 5 years ago, and the first way it began was just going to some homeschool field trips, and we met some families that we connected with and started having some conversations about what would it look like if we did things together. I feel like you guys are going to have a very interesting view of me by the time I'm done talking today, but I started the co-op because I was just desperate to do it by saying, just come, I'll teach everything. And so for the first year, we did 3 different classes, and like you said, the first year we kind of felt our way, but it has been a huge help for us. It knocks out 3 of our core subjects. I get to have my kids learn from somebody other than me. The other families get to do the same. There's some break time for us as moms, to just know that there's a couple subjects off our plates. And as they're getting older, it's nice for them to have some classes where I don't really know what they're doing and what their assignments are, because it's teaching them responsibility to have to be in charge of their own classes the same way they would have to be in a school system. If you're interested in starting a co-op, that's one of the things we're going to ask you about on the survey, or connecting with other parents. And I'm also happy to talk more afterwards. There are some important things to think through that we learned as we went, which were, this child is not obeying and I'm not the parent. Do I go get the parent, or do I correct it? And how do they want me to handle this? Yeah. Courtney's saying it was her child. It's not usually her child, but yeah. And we've also run into some things where, different teachers have different teaching styles, and my kids will tell you, we can talk in Mrs. Remy's class because she's so cool, but in your class, Mom, we have to be quiet. So, it's just things to think through and talk about, right? Like, as you decide to bring a group together. So that's something I would really recommend. The other thing I would just say about co-ops too, depending on where you are at this year, is to think about what you need as a family. Again, I was a working parent, and I really wanted to get involved in co-ops, and most of the ones I looked at had so many commitment requirements that I couldn't make it work. We very intentionally formed our co-op to say, where is your life right now? What kind of support do you need? Everyone is still very committed to what we're doing and involved in some way, but I had one semester where my work schedule was so bad that everyone was like, take the semester off and just drop your kids off. That was something we swore we were never going to do, right? So when you have the right group of people, you can really make a lot of things work. So finding your tribe through this is going to be a really important support network for you.
Yeah. We also have, we will email out a survey later tonight when I get home. So might be really later tonight, depending on how long we stick around and chat. But the survey will have both a question of would you like to have another panel like this on certain topics, on homeschool or on curriculum or whatever. And then the other question is just if you want to share your information with other people who are here, you can. What we will do is, I'm not going to facilitate you all. I'm not going to put the group together, but if you want to put down your name, your kids' ages and genders, and then we will just email all that information out to you, and you can find the second grade boys in that list if that's where you're at, and you can connect with each other that way with the people who are here. I've seen a ton of that happening on Facebook too, so just especially find some Facebook homeschool groups, and you can connect with people that way, and especially friends from school who are, even if they're still going to be doing things at school, you could connect with them after their school day is done too. So, again, look at the resources you have, and do what you need to do to, and also my personal opinion, I'll just throw this out here, is that this year we can't, I can't do what we did in the spring of just staying home with our own families. I think we need to find a small tribe of people who we can stick together with, and find the couple families who have kids your age, and you meet with them and you see them and you socialize with them, and you hope that you don't give each other COVID, but you're forming that small group. But we all need each other. And so that's really my recommendation is find somebody who you can do life with this fall. Okay, so we've had,
Sorry, I was just going to add one, because I know this was multiple questions. I was just going to say that co-ops are also really good in comparison to public school, where your second grader has their history, math, lit, science, government, whatever subjects they are. Your fourth grader has their history, science, lit, whatever. The co-ops are a great way to have that multi-age learning as well. So at home, like my kids have their math and language books that they all do their own levels. Those are sequential. They kind of have to stick with their grade level. But for the other subjects, we're all together, and that's maybe twice a week for an hour or for something. So it takes a lot less time. Everybody's having these experiences together. So that's just to kind of answer your like, oh my gosh, do I have to do second grade, third grade, fourth grade, 3 different sciences, 3 different histories? That co-ops would be a great way to do those things together.
Thank you for adding that. And likewise, a third grade boy and a second grade boy and a kindergarten boy could all hang out together and have a good time, too. So it doesn't have to be the same grade levels. That's one of the things I appreciate about homeschooling is that we do expand that concept of who our friends are. Okay, we're gonna, I just want briefly to touch on social skills and just things. We had a question about what your day looks like as far as, just are you doing school in the morning? Are you doing chores? Are you out of the house a lot? And obviously that may change this year. So I think all of us are usually out of the house a lot, but we may not be this year. So just kind of what your day looks like, and what you do to see other people throughout your week.
When my kids were younger, we usually tried to do the subjects that they didn't like first when they were the brightest, the most ready to go in the day. So oftentimes that was math. So usually we started the day with math, and then got into the subjects that they were doing themselves, like the English, and then tried to do the group things in the afternoon when people were getting tired, and or when the younger ones were napping, then you do the science experiments with the older ones, so the younger ones don't mess it up. So that's how we did it when the kids were younger. And then we would usually be gone one day a week for some kind of co-op, something out of the house. A group of us did presentations to the local nursing home once a month. That was a lot of fun. The kids would come, they would play their piano pieces or their recorder pieces or recite a poetry. And it was fun for the kids, and it was fun for the elderly people that we were visiting. As the kids got older and into high school, we kind of had to arrange our high school learning around the online classes. So we knew that, Tuesday mornings, we definitely had to stay home because 2 of the kids had classes online. But by the time my kids got to high school, they were very independent learners. So especially the junior and senior year, I was just kind of coming in and grading things here and there, answering questions here and there, but they were doing the majority of the learning themselves, and they would just go through the books and or the projects or whatever they were doing. As far as social, we did field trips when the kids were younger. I visited the nursing homes, did book discussion groups, both on homeschool and with our church. So they had plenty of opportunity to interact with a lot of different people and get to meet a lot of people and see how a lot of people taught different than their mom did. So that was kind of fun.
I was just looking and thinking back when I was teaching kindergarten. I would spend an hour a day on kindergarten, or maybe an hour and a half max. I mean, it just does not need to be that long. Anywhere up to now, I've got 2 high schoolers at home still. That's 4 to 5 hours on classwork a day. Then we have lessons, outside lessons, music lessons. Tuesday's our co-op day, so that day is pretty much reserved for co-op because by the time we get home, the kids are tired. But that's where these 2 have done their foreign language and speech class, American government, things like that. So again, those are more independent experiences. I don't necessarily know what's going on in American government, but I'm there to answer questions if they need help, or the person that's teaching that class is there to answer questions if they need help. So that teaches them a little bit more at the older ages to be a little more independent. And my 3 older kids all did co-op, and they had no trouble referring to Delta and higher education. They knew what was expected and they could handle it. My typical day with 2 high schoolers: get up, eat breakfast, do chores, start school 9-ish, hopefully, do school till lunch, more school, free time, other lessons when done with work. So they're pretty independent on their own schedules. I know what Karen said is good. We always tried to start with, when I'm teaching it, we tried to start with the things I didn't like. So for many of it was math, others it was something else. But at this age, I let them kind of decide what they're going to do when. The things that I teach right now in the morning when I'm teaching, I like to start off so that I have my afternoon more or less free, even though I have to be there. I'm still there as in the role of teacher. So we start with the things I teach, which is usually history, English or literature, and Bible. So I do those with them first thing, and then we do the other stuff. As far as social skills and social activities, we've had play dates, we've had park days where we get together with other homeschool families and do play together out in the park. My daughter was in a girls' club with Karen's daughter. We've just called up other homeschool families on nice days and go for a picnic. With church youth groups, volunteering with other families. We've done volunteering activities in Midland and the surrounding area. Days out of the home, we have co-op day, we have music lessons, we have riding lessons. My son plays sports, and then other field trips.
I'm going to say ditto and ditto for pretty much everything that they've said, and the only things I'm going to add are that for us, we also have a pretty big emphasis on life skills. Again, this somewhat stemmed out of the necessity that I was working full-time and my husband was working full-time. Our kids do a lot of chores around the house. So they are responsible, believe it or not, for most of our laundry, even my husband's and mine, cleaning the house, sometimes meal prep. So as you're thinking about your schedule and you're wondering, what do I do with all this downtime? Put them to some practical work too. It is good for them to learn how to do those things, and it's a big help to you because if you will be doing some teaching, you're going to need some support in other areas. Don't think that you can keep doing